We're here with Steve, who got 52nd at the Galactic Championship with Mother Talzin Red. A grinder. Went through day one, day two. You had a win and in matchup. You took advantage of it, and now we're here to break down the deck list, talk about your experience a little bit, and just to welcome Steve in for the first time. Really happy to have you.
Good to be here, team.
Yep. So take us through the deck. We'll pull it up on screen, but what made you want to play Talzin?
That's a fair question. Probably getting beat by Quinlan so many times. When the new set came out, Talzin was just so similar to Quinlan, but also Dark Side, which I like better, I guess. Access to Force Lightning and Force Throw seemed strong. And I really enjoyed the ability to act in little ways to make a big difference, right? And that's what Talzin really is she's just about like making this little difference that's going to change the math, right? Like a lot of times you think like the obvious, well, I'm going to kill that shielded unit with an extra -1/-1, but sometimes it's other things like I'm going to give you -1/-1 so that your 3 attack is now 2 attack and can't kill 3 of my units, whereas you could have killed 1 of them. And those little things just make a big difference over the course of the game.
Yeah. Kind of stands out to me like a similar way that I approach like sports betting in general, is that like every time you make a decision, you're trying to gain a little bit of value. Every time you're just trying to just stack it up. And then eventually, if you're lucky, it works out, right?
Yeah, and in that way, it's very mid-rangey, I guess. I originally played it trying to go like super aggro, where my top end was Asajj. And then it was really through team work on it that, we got a little bit more top end. When the sun came in, that was a huge game changer. Yeah. Having the Devastator is a good closer. But like I was originally playing it where like I would not resource after 5 resources. And it was like cool, but it wasn't doing what it needed to do.
Hey,
I mean, that's how it goes.
When you were targeting the meta, so as you decided to play this deck, you had mentioned earlier, kind of joking, but we did a playtest session kind of in person, like a week beforehand. And if I recall, Quinlan was crushing you. But I think I must interpret that to mean that you didn't think you were going to face as much Quinlan. I'm going to say that must mean you thought you were going to face a lot of probably Han. Tell me about the Han matchup. Did you play a lot of Hans?
I wanted to play that matchup, right? I wanted to play more Hans than I did. I saw 2 Han Blues in 19 games. 2 Han Blues. I beat them all. Oh, no, 3 Han Blues. And I beat them. I wasn't really realizing it until really close to the end, where we really knew what the clear deck list was. And then just playing in my head, what are the first 2 or 3 turns against Han? And I mean, that was the big thing. And most of the early game, I knew the game plan. And again, the little things make a big difference against Han. It's things like when you drop down the itinerant warrior, right? It's the 2/2 or it's the 4/4 shielded, but then with Han, it's a 4/2, and then that's Talzin's flip turn finishes that off, and just a lot of like little things that ended up working out really well, and it turns out to be really strong against Han too. And I didn't really realize that until pretty close to the end. But it was kind of like I was watching your guys' stream, the last one earlier on, and it was about that sticking to it, right? You play the deck, and sometimes it goes wrong. I had a couple of incidents like Kyle was talking about where he had one bad night, and he's like, oh, maybe I got to switch off Quinlan. I had a bad night with Talzin, and I was like, really, do I switch off Talzin? But a lot of it was really there's so many little things that you can do to change a deck. And that was the thing with Talzin. Like one of the big things that really totally shifted the Han 2 matchup was putting in 3 fallen lightsabers. Like I wouldn't have thought that was such a big thing because I usually don't go upgrades because they're so easy to kill. And if you do get like Power the Dark Side right on the turn 2 upgrade, you lose that game. But against Han 2, even if they have the kill, which a lot of times they don't, it's only the rival's fall, it's only the next turn, and you're often killing their turn 1 and 2 play and possibly more with that fallen lightsaber. And that ended up being huge. Especially with the deck list being open in that last day 2 and day 3, because then you really knew whether or not you wanted to play them. So they often got sideboarded out, but having the 3 in the main board was huge for winning a lot of game 1s.
Yep, that's definitely
It also
true.
looks like you played a lot of mirrors, right? I haven't looked at the play schedule there, but it looked like you played against a lot of other Talzins. Do you think having that higher top end allows you to get through those?
Actually, the opposite. My Talzin ended up being really good into the mirror because I had more tempo, whereas the other Talzins played more top end. So some of the Talzins were similar, but a lot of times had more control. So I ran Force Lightning, Force Throw, and Power the Dark Sides, 3 of each. And because I was really looking for control that allowed me to control and play something else, right? So you force throw and play a unit. You force lightning and play a unit. So I wasn't playing any of the high level ones, except I had one in the sideboard, the Rival's Fall, because really it was about that tempo. And so a lot of times against those mirrors, they would kill my thing, but then I'd play one or two things, and I would kill their thing and also keep the tempo going. And I think that was the big difference. So I think all of the Talzins that were Talzin Reds, except for, and I think a really interesting matchup was playing against the eventual champion.
So the guy who won.
Yes, and I was able to play that match, and that was one of the ones I remembered because I had won 4 mirrors before that, so I was feeling pretty confident. But this guy, Philippe, right? He knew Talzin. Like, I thought I knew Talzin. This guy knew Talzin, and the couple of things that he did differently in his deck ended up being the difference in our matchup. One of them was having the Hotshot Blaster.
Yeah,
I didn't really think. I often don't think of the off aspect. And I know Hotshot Blaster is an off aspect, but it's a yellow card, even though it looks like it's a red card. It's not. But talking that through and realizing, well, you often put it in the board for that final push, which is often what Talzin needs. And that ends up you really do think about that, right? That extra 2 damage is huge. And in the finals, it was, I think, coming into play as what was it? Lego Pizza wasn't sure if he wanted to flip because he might get hit with a hot shot underneath, with the force lightning. So it was interesting how that becomes something to worry about. And then also just on turn 1, you play your Secret Sage, and the next turn you put the hot shot on, and you're still getting the tempo, but you're able to kill their turn 1s. So talking that through was really helpful. And then the other sideboard card that ended up making a difference in our game was, of course, Ki-Adi Mundi, which I would never think to put Ki-Adi Mundi Red Heroic in the deck, but that ended up being the difference in our game. I think it was game 2, where being able to play that when I had the Force Throw in my hand, so he had 1 card in his hand, he plays Ki-Adi Mundi, draws the 2 cards, and then he was able to finish it out, whereas I think if he didn't have Ki-Adi, I would have steamrolled him in that game. So some of those little differences. Purge Trooper didn't come into play, but he was talking about how often that could. And so it was really fun to be able to talk to him as another Talzin player and see where he made his choices and how they were different from mine. And I thought that was really, really cool. And I think he played it amazingly. He knew his stuff. I mean, I really think he showed us that it's not just about having the best deck, it's about having the deck that you know so well.
And one thing that stands out to me is that there's a lot of decks that target decks like Han Blue, right? And I think one of my errors of judgment is underestimating how strong they were going to be into the rest of the field. But I think one thing that you have to think about when you start playing the quote unquote top deck that's going to be targeting the lead deck, right? It's like the second deck that's targeting, but it becomes popular, is that you got to practice the mirror. You got to play the mirror and you have to try to build some stuff there. And I could really see Ki-Adi being a separator in other matchups, but here specifically, because a lot of your stuff is so similar. And I know, Sharky, I see you shaking your head over there on that.
Yeah, I run it. I mean, I worked with Steve a lot on the Talzin deck in general. He took it a little further than I did, and I loved the deck that he ended up on. But like small things like that, just being able to draw extra cards or refill your hand after doing the same thing every other Talzin does is a really big deal. Or like Steve in this case decided to attack with Long Pike as a smuggle option instead of like just in case like, and that's another good option.
Gotcha.
But like those kind of like decisions are really important, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Finish your thought. I was going to ask about a couple cards.
Yeah, for me, the thing with the mirror that was just the game changer was always Asajj. Like Asajj, I think she was really underappreciated as. I think she wouldn't have been as good if it wasn't that she's the flip, right? So you've got Talzin, and then you can play Asajj after you flip Talzin. That gave Talzin a reach that you didn't have, and Asajj having 6 health meant that a lot of the things that were coming at her couldn't kill her in one hit. Like I'm thinking Darth Vader for one thing. And so it just that little extra reach that Asajj had ended up being a really big difference, especially in the mirrors.
Yeah, you got me onto her too, and I was really happy with. I think I used her in my winning Carbonite box. It was the Carbonite tournament we did a week before, and I was very impressed with how well she performed on that one. You definitely got me out of that.
Yeah, I think with Talzin, what I found playing so many games with her is it's about the flip turn, and it's interesting how often decks come down to that. But like you need to have a good flip turn in a tempo deck like this because that was often the match. If you could control the board on the flip turn, you would often win it until they, ECL Vader. That was the one thing that stopped that.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you could control the board on the flip turn, you have 2 or 3 units out and they have none, you have that game. And if they can control you on the flip turn, the opposite happens. And that's where things like the forced choke made a big difference. Because if they could slow you down enough with, say, a Chirrut, then it could really become a problem for you, not just because you couldn't hit their base, but because you couldn't hit their other units and clear them out. And so having that force choke was really huge in a couple of those mirror matches.
I want to ask about a couple of the one-ofs and potential for, now that you've played this deck to great success,
Yeah.
I assume you're going to stay on it for a while here. What changes would you make? And so I want to ask about like Big Kiadi, Dooku, and the Jedi in Hiding. I think those are the 3 to me that when I look at this deck, I think, are those going to stick around? So I want to hear how they do
and to add on to that, I'd like to ask about Chirrut. Is that going to be one that stays in the deck for you, becomes a sideboard option? Seems a lot of the other top lists weren't running Chirrut.
Yeah, I think so much of it is what you're playing against, right? So against Han Blue, Chirrut was huge. Against Sabine, Chirrut is huge. So like I ran, so your 4 cost is so big in this. You've got the Talzin Assassin, you've got Chirrut, and you've got Darth Tyrannus. And you'll notice that what I did was I put 3 Tyrannus, 2 of the others, and then 1 of the others in the sideboard. And the idea is that you sideboard them out depending on what your matchup was. So against space aggro, for example, you put in another Talzin Assassin because Dooku is not going to do anything for you there. If you're running against Sabine or other ground aggro, you put in the Chirrut. And so it was kind of nice to have that flexibility, though it did limit my sideboard a little bit. But yeah, no, I think Chirrut is really important. Chirrut is tough because in some ways, and I'm assuming the reason why a lot of Talzin players didn't have Chirrut in is it puts you in some awkward situations because you want to give them the -1/-1, but if you have Chirrut out, you're actually meaning they'll do more damage if you do, and so a lot of times you don't do that. And so in the perfect curve, you don't play Chirrut. Chirrut's your, oh no, things are going wrong, what do I do? You have Chirrut. So I think it's important to have those contingencies, and I think Chirrut is definitely a contingency plan.
Yeah, how about some of those one-offs? What is it?
Yeah.
Big Dooku, Kiadi, Big Kiadi.
Yeah, more contingency plans. So Kiadi is your contingency if they are going hard hand hate, but not hard board control. I think I only used him a couple of times, but Kiadi is really good, especially because, again, it's not as good if it wasn't for the flip turn, because it's similar to like Plo Koon, right? If with Quinlan.
Oh.
Right, because you can pull up your leader and then play Kiadi. And if you have one other unit, then you've got that coordinate. And Kiadi really works best. And the way that I've used him best is if you can play him down after they have played their first card, right? So sometimes they'll play Force Throw, and they'll have 5 resources left. And that's when you put down Kiadi. Because then they're like, okay, I have to decide, especially if they're going hard hand hate, do I play my other card? Which a lot of times they didn't, because people are really afraid of that extra 2 card draw. And then you just end up kind of getting a little bit more tempo that way. And that's where Kiadi was important. But again, he's a one-off because he's not as strong as Asajj, and he's not going to be used in as many matchups. He's really kind of positioned for that other thing. The Big Count Dooku was similar. Sadly, in 19 games that I played over the weekend, I never once played him. So maybe he wasn't the right choice for this meta. The original idea of him was you can get a lot of tempo if they are doing something in space or playing around with having board control in different ways. Dooku can really be helpful if you need to like hit big into space, or if they're trying to do little ping damage to you, you maybe can kill your things that are going to die anyway and get a big thing out and do some other damage. So he's really about like, oh no, everything's going wrong. Maybe he's the right choice. But again, it didn't end up happening. I almost always sideboarded him out. Maybe he should have been a sideboard card in the first place, but yeah, I put him in there because there were a couple of things that I was afraid of. And then I ended up needing to be afraid of them because 2 of the decks that took me out were weird space aggro. So I was totally prepared for Vader, right? I was not prepared for Han for Tarkin Town.
Tarkin Town deck, yeah.
Right, so I played that top 8 list, and he just ran over me because all of my dealings with space was either A, Force Lightning, which I didn't draw, and that was a big part of it, or B, all these little things like Talzin's Assassin and Mother Talzin. And just because of the nature of that deck, I couldn't really do anything about it. And other times when I have a deck that I don't have anything I can do about, that's when I put in Pillage. going back to your original question, why Secretive Sage? Because you're running 3 force throws. I think you don't run Secretive Sage if you're not running 3 force throws. But force throw is always stronger when you have something else that's also discarding cards. And then you sideboard into Pillage if you're going against heavy control, which I didn't end up. I luckily dodged all the heavy control the entire weekend.
Jedi hiding, right? So you're saying Secret of Sage Force.
Sorry.
Okay, they're both keeping secrets in some way. So
the Jedi hiding, yeah.
With that being said, are there any changes you would make if you were playing this weekend?
I mean, I would put a Hot Shot Blasters in. That is the first most important change. I think the Hot Shot Blasters is just perfect because I like having something in the row. I think I didn't really consider it all, but having it in the row, but also having it turn 1 or turn 2 can be a really big change as well. So especially the Secret of Sage for real that time. And so I would definitely put that in. I still don't know that I would run the Heroic Kiadi. I think another reason why it was good in Philip, his deck is because he also ran Anakin, which I decided to move off of because at 6 resources, the -3/-3 wasn't worth it. But having that as well, I can totally see the play for Kiadi. But 6 for that just didn't feel great for me.
What about Krennic? I think looking at Benton's list, I think that's one.
Krennic is one
I think that I would rather have over the Infused Brawler. I know you've been a fan of the Brawler since early in the season, back when I was playing Avar a lot. But I do think that stickiness with a second shielded unit probably does go a long way. And you do have a fair amount of when defeated triggers.
Yeah, so you can get the Ruthless Raider for cheaper.
Karis.
You got Karis for cheaper.
You got the Acolyte for cheaper. You got the Jedi hiding for cheaper.
Your turn 2 could be Acolyte or Karis or Krennic, and then one of those 2 as well. And I kind of like the idea too. So I want to throw Krennic into mine.
Something to think about, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. I think Krennic definitely has a place there. I'm still not ready to go off of the Infused Brawlers because a lot of times dropping those, people were not ready for them. And it was really important, especially once they had board control, if I could lay 2 good units turn 5 or turn 6. And that 4/4 for 2 ended up being really big. You never play it turn 1. It's not a turn 1 play, but it can be really good. Or like if you pillage and play an Infused Brawler, like I think that it still has a place. It's possible that it gets pushed out for Krennic because of that, but I'm not ready to give up on the Infused Brawler yet. I think it did play important throughout the weekend.
You know, another one that I noticed in there was the tie, the 3/3 Sentinel tie. You know, it seems like you have a lot of interaction with space to kind of kill things, either with your hero ability or with the Talzin's Assassin, this sort of thing. Did you find that to be very effective? Or
I think it was helpful. I would sideboard them out and in place give the Fang Fighter if I was playing against something that was really not in space at all. But so many decks weren't in space at all. So similar with the Kylo Silencer. Because a lot of times you want to play a force unit turn 1, right? But sometimes I actually found not. Because for a lot of these decks, when you play that 3/2 in space and you're just hitting for 3 every turn, you could get 15 damage off of that thing because so many people don't have anything in space. And a lot of decks, you're putting enough pressure on ground that they don't have time to switch to space. And so I've actually found that doing that silencer turn 1 is sometimes better than your turn 1 down on the ground. Because what you really need the force for is turn 3. And so that's what you've got your Grand Inquisitor and Secret Sage. It's very hard for them to stop you from getting the force if you have one of the hidden units. So putting that up in space turn 1, and to the same extent, like you got a 3/3 Sentinel. 3 is just good in space. Having the Sentinel in case they're playing heavy space aggro, really important Invader, really important against some of like the pilot decks, especially because the issue with the space is once you get to that 4 health, and I'm thinking red 5, for instance, Talzin can't do much against red 5. Yeah, you could Talzin's Assassin and Talzin, but the challenge with that is you need the force twice. So you need to have the force, hit it with Talzin's Assassin, swing with a force unit, and then hit it with Talzin. It's very difficult to do. Yeah. But if you just had that up in space, you can get that damage that you need for Talzin to finish it off. That becomes really important, especially because a lot of those ships that have that play in space, just like I was trying to do just a little bit when necessary, could also not do what they want to do. I think it was a really important thing, especially in the mirror. Because again, a lot of the Talzins weren't playing anything in space. And if I put that up there, I was just getting 3/3/3/3 And I think there were at least 2 games that won me the game, was having that damage on base that they weren't responding to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so as we close things up here, guys, you have any questions left for Steve? Because I want to know some overall thoughts on the weekend from Steve before we get out of here.
Covered everything about the deck for me, so.
Cool, great.
Yeah,
well,
I think I learned a lot about Talzin.
Me too, and I'm excited to play it. It's one of the decks I didn't devote my time to as much in the run up. I know.
Gen Con.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask, Sharky, but that's good. I'm excited to see how it goes for you. Steve, you did a great job representing the team, man. Battling hard through day 1 to day 2 on to day 3. You know, we were taking laps around the Venetian on Thursday talking about it, and I'm happy to see it work out for you. So overall, obviously, your performance aside, how did you feel about the event?
Yeah, one more thing about Talzin before we jump off that. I got beat by a Talzin yellow. That deck was fascinating. It crushed me in the mirror. Like, it wasn't a mirror, it was Talzin yellow. But I had not seen that coming. And sometimes the thing that you don't see coming is the most important thing. Because he knew exactly what to do against me. I had no idea what to do against him. So I think that's
was that in? Because I
snagged it. We've got it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up the list real quick. Was that
Loomis? It was J2.
Yeah,
when he snuck attack a Cad Bane into me to finish me off, I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, I played
really interesting. I did that with Cad Bane, not Talzin.
Yeah.
Right.
Zach from McClunky was on Talzin Yellow. We played later on. Very interesting deck. I think Han just has literally no chance to it. But go ahead. How was the weekend? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time. My experience was very different from most people's experience because I did not play a single side event. I have to wait in that huge line. I didn't have to do any. I was playing the Galactics for the entire time I was there. By the time I finally did get out, 19 games later, I was like, okay, I don't want to do anything else. Swoo, right? So I didn't do any of that stuff. So my experience was, I think, quite different, and it was great. They did the Galactic really well. Even if they didn't do everything well, they did the Galactic really well. And unlike Sectors, there was great prizing, right? And so it always felt meaningful. You got a couple of you guys got out, you couldn't make day 3, but you still wanted to play it out because every game that you won mattered. And I think that felt really good too.
Yeah, I agree. And my last question for you, just from a judging perspective, obviously we've been a little critical of some of the judges. We kind of feel, and I don't want to speak for the other guys, we talked about it last night. If you missed it, it's on the channel. Where do you fall on judges who don't necessarily play the game at a competitive level? Do you think that's a necessary thing or a helpful thing? I don't want you to talk, I'm not asking you to talk negatively about any judges, obviously. I just wonder from a trait perspective, do you think that's an important skill or important thing to have in your toolbox?
So I judged so this is my first game that I've ever judged for. I mean, this is the second game that I played competitively, and I was like, hey, this might be an interesting way to see the game in a different way. So I started doing the judge program. I got to judge at Sectors. And I was really surprised judging at Sectors because a lot of the people that were judges, they didn't, Swoo was not their game. So I'm like, how are all these people getting all this experience? Because a lot of the judge circuit is judging for every game. And I think that there are absolutely some transferable skills that say like how you take a judge call, how you manage this, I think that that's transferable, and I think that there's a lot of value there. But I think that there is value in having judges that are specific to a specific game. And that's what I'm going to be. I'm not going to go over and judge Flesh and Blood because I know how to judge Swoo, right? I think that what was interesting to me was I knew very little about judging when I judged Sectors, but I knew more about card interaction in Swoo than a lot of the judges that were head judges or, the higher level people. And so I think that there's a place for both. And I think that there's a lot of value with judging for Swoo, knowing Swoo, because I think there's 2 things. Number one is obviously the cards themselves, being able to know the cards so well that you can look at it at a board state and pretty much know what was happening, what the problem is, because you played enough yourself. The second thing is, I think that one of the things I love about Swoo that I think is going to keep me here for a long time is the players. When you play Magic, when you play some of the other card games, I haven't played a lot of the other card games, so I don't like the community quite so much. But I've judged now 2 PQs, a bunch of showdowns and Sectors. I've had not one negative interaction with a player. right? Now, of course, there have been negative interactions with players. I'm sure we all know about them. But like, I think that's kind of unheard of. I think that the players of this game, at least right now, it's just really positive community. And you saw that at the Galactics. I mean, you're standing in line a lot, right? And you just talk to the person next to you for an hour, and they're cool people.
Sure.
And it's just an amazing community. I think that that's something that being a judge specific for this community is going to feel a lot different. Like, I know that some of the calls, like Jordan especially, that you're talking about has been like the harshness of the judge action sometimes, or like I think a lot of that's the carryover from other card games where you, as a judge, you have to assume a certain intent. You have to assume certain things about the players. You can't just give them the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, when you go into those interactions, assuming that there's a negative experience here, I think is very different than going into it assuming that both players are just trying to make the best game that they can.
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference. And I think that's a positivity that I think is really great about SWU. And I don't want anybody, players, judges, to bring that down.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why it's important to have judges like you and people like you. So great job representing yourself. Really happy to have you on. We'll do some more gameplay, get you on the podcast again. And
yeah, I'd love to.
Appreciate you. Had a great time hanging with you all weekend, and excited to go out and get some more wins for the team.
Yeah, congratulations on the
great run.
I will say, doing so well with Talzin. Jillian told me she's switching to Talzin, so I'm sure she's going to pick your brain.
She can slay some nerds.
Yep.
She's going to slay a nerd on Friday.
In the midday matchup. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Steven. We'll catch you soon. Bye.
All right. Take care, guys.